Ahoy folks, Craig here from Pure Xbox because, well, Persona 3 Reload is out now. It's on Xbox, it's on Xbox Game Pass, it's a day one release. I'm certainly excited for the game, but I'm not the only one here today. In fact, I've managed to pull Xeon all the way back from Nintendo Life. He handled the Persona 3 Reload video review, which many of you have been very, very kind on. So, Xeon, it's lovely to have you back. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm happy to have another reason to talk, or another place to talk about Persona 3 Reload. Since it didn't come to Switch, I can't talk about it over there. I could just complain about it over there.
I know, it's really sad, but it's also really cool for me because it means that we get to chat, and
That's so true.
Pure Xbox loves you already, so
That's so kind.
It's a great place for you to be. I'm going to keep you at some point. Sorry, Nintendo Life, it's going to be a scary future for you.
Maybe you can have weekends for me or something like that.
Yeah, like joint custody.
Yeah.
Xeon.
We'll work it
Our
out.
cute baby boy.
That's so good.
But yeah, so Persona 3 Reload is out now. It's like the fourth or fifth version of the game. Depending on how you consider Persona 3 Portable, because it did come out on Game Pass not that long ago. But I know I've spent some time with the game. You obviously have as well because of the review and stuff. But
Not as much as I would like still, but I mean that's the hard thing when it's
isn't
like
that always the case with Persona though? It's always the case.
Yeah.
We could put in 3 whole days and still have not scratched the surface
Right,
with these games. But yeah, we wanted to discuss today whether or not Persona 3 Reload is really that good. Is it a 10? Spoiler alert if you haven't watched the review, which you absolutely should do.
Yeah, go watch the review.
Yeah, do that first and then come back. But we gave it a big fat stinking 9, and I think it's thoroughly deserved. Little bits here and there that doesn't make it a 10, but we're here to discuss that, I think.
Yeah. So I guess I can start out with something I really, really like a lot, which I think was kind of like not a contentious. It's one of those things that makes Persona 3, like drop down a peg. Tartarus, like as a dungeon, like in the original Persona 3 and like FES and Portable, it was a very kind of boring and formulaic tower to scale. You're going through these floors that every I think it was like every 20 or 30 floors, maybe like the floor layout or like the theming of the floor would change. It got to be like just very grindy. It could just be a little monotonous at times.
A bit too familiar.
Yeah.
Just Groundhog Day, so to speak. But you could say that is down to the fact that it came out in 2006 and
True.
Hardware was a bit limited, and obviously with Persona 5 and the palaces on offer all being unique in lots of different ways, that Tartarus can come across as a bit samey and a bit boring and stuff. But
Yeah.
I will say first and foremost that Tartarus in Persona 3 Reload, I actually really like it. I've put a few hours into the game. I've been in it. It's one of those dungeons that changes as you go into it. Like every time you go into it, it's slightly different.
Yeah.
The corridors aren't the same, and it does add a lot of diversity in that way. At least because, it's falling short on changing the interior, changing the design. But
So I'm not too far into Persona 3 Reload either. Like I said, not as far as I would like to be, but I've made it to the second area and it's changed like a lot more than I would have expected in comparison to Persona 3. It's still like a just big, lots of floors of kind of it's like a never-ending maze is kind of how it feels. But I'm surprised by how they've changed the look of it. How different the floor kind of layout feels. I think in Reload, that's a big kind of revamp, and I like that the team kind of put so much effort into Tartarus in the end.
it definitely feels like a character.
Oh yeah, like a living, breathing kind of thing.
Yeah, I played some Persona 3 Portable when it launched in 2023 on Game Pass, I think it was. Yeah, It was last year. Which, funnily enough, it's no longer on Game Pass, so...
Oh, dang.
That's fun. But yeah, we've got Persona 3 Reload now, so I'm not crying. So earlier, you actually managed to get hands-on with Persona 3 Reload. I think it was around the same time as Starfield launched, so I never even got to make the video in the end. But it was there that I asked you, should I play Persona 3 Portable, or should I wait? And you replied with a dead certain... don't play Persona 3 Portable. And you were quite insistent on it as well, and I respected it. And I avoided playing Persona 3 Portable, Persona 4 Golden, and even Persona 5 because I really wanted to play Persona 3. Persona 3 Reload specifically.
How do you feel? How do you feel about having done that?
I think I made the right choice.
Yeah?
Honestly, I feel so happy that I saved my Persona energy, my JRPG energy, because we all have like spoons for JRPGs. They take a lot out of us. I'm so happy that I've saved it because I feel like I have the excitement and the energy to take on this entire game.
Yeah,
and
good.
I would have lost that if I dipped in anywhere else. So I just want to say thank you
Oh,
for
man.
telling me not to play Portable.
Genuinely, it's really nice to hear. As your friend, I wanted you to have the best Persona experience, right? And so, like, I remember being conflicted because you were like, I'm so excited, like, I want to go play Persona 3. I might still go play it anyways. And I, like, you know, I wasn't like, idiot. That's not how I felt. It was just like, I just don't want him to walk away from this not getting Persona 3, you know?
Exactly.
Just because of how many things it cut. So that's awesome.
I already feel that. I got to the first interaction with a shadow in Portable, and that's where I stopped. And when I got to that same section in Persona 3 Reload, I was raring to go. I was like fist pumping. I was like, this is it. This is so much better and so much more immersive. And like the fanfare is just over the top. I was gunning to take that fight on, and in Persona 3 Portable, I was like, oh, I'm fighting now. So for that, making that decision was probably the best thing for me.
Good. I mean, it's one of those things where, like, in a perfect world, like, you know, obviously we'd all want a remake of our favorite games, and Persona 3 Portable was like a cute, like, alternative way to play the game, like on a portable handheld, you know, at the time, and it makes sense that that's the one that they put out when they had this Reload, you know, remake in the works for so long. But yeah, I'm glad that you got to wait out and that it paid off. Heck yeah.
Yeah, but what I like about Tartarus is straight out the gate, it feels very, very iconic. As a person who's not really that familiar with Persona 3 as a whole throughout its entire history and all of the different versions of it, Persona 3 Reload's version of Tartarus with all the moving walls and ominous tiled floor and corridors, and every now and then there's just like a little dash of blood. Like it really sets this darker tone very well. I would argue that, you know, variety is better, but in Persona 5 specifically, I remember there was a bank level palace.
Oh yeah.
And I strongly disliked its presentation. So I remember that felt like a big slog, whereas with Persona 3 Reload, I go into Tartarus knowing that it's always going to be Tartarus and it's just going to change slightly, but I don't know, it sets expectations out the gate, and I don't mind it, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I suppose it's like a more in-depth, like, personalized version of Mementos instead, right? Like, which I guess I didn't consider until right now. But yeah, because you have like all these floors that you're scaling, and you know, enemies get progressively more difficult. But Mementos got really grindy and really samey after a while, and
Absolutely. It's core to, I guess, the identity is what I would think when I think about Persona 3. Those tiled floors just feel kind of iconic, or it gives me Persona 3, and that's exactly what it wants to do and it sets out to do.
Yeah.
I do want to make a point that I did, like, if we're not gonna talk about story really. We don't want to spoil anything. I personally haven't played through enough of it to have like a full picture of the story either. But I did put out a poll on Pure Xbox just the day before we recorded this. And I was just curious to see what people thought about which Persona game had the best story. So there was Persona 3, there was Persona 4 and 5, as well as, because they only gave us 4 options, I did other Persona game, and I did a picture of Persona 2 because I know people like that one as well. But I was surprised that like 40 to 50% of all the people that voted for 3.
Whoa,
so
awesome.
It kind of justifies the fact that we've had 4 or 5 different versions of this game, that if people love the story that much, like, newcomers aren't going to miss out on this awesome story if they're feeling a little bit like, I guess, shallow to older generations, older versions of the game. Like, I love a brand spanking new game. I love something feeling fluid and slick, and Persona 3 Reload definitely does feel like that, but
When this really
Yeah,
is like a remake done right, in like especially the presentation was like another thing that I feel like it goes without saying, like the different menus, the flashy like battle animations that like PJ brought up in the review. Everything feels so like over the top. The developers really like they knew what they were signing up for with this, instead of like some developers or like port teams or like people that are doing remasters and stuff just like, I don't want to say they're just taking a paycheck, but this is not the case at all. This is the Persona development team just diving head into the fact that like, yep, okay, we're remaking Persona. Let's do it from the ground up. Not in like a Final Fantasy VII Rebirth way where like they're trying to, make this like grander than it is or anything like that. They're really kind of like you were saying, like now this Persona 3 is just like accessible to a modern audience now in a way that like maybe like Tartarus would have turned some people off.
Yeah.
The visual novel aspects, like with lesser, like Persona 3 originally had like a lot of voice acting anyways, but now I feel like there's even more in here, and the voice actors, they nail their roles. Like Junpei, the guy with the hat, he like had a very
he's adorable.
right? He's such a weirdo sometimes, and like makes really like gross comments that like make your like your spine like just makes your skin crawl. But it's about seeing how he changes throughout the story and becomes a better person, and when your skin crawls when you see him say something awful, that just means that like you personally know that that's not acceptable. That's not an acceptable thing to hear, and it's just kids in high school in a way.
Oh yeah, everyone's thirsty in this
Right?
game. Honestly, I said he was adorable. He's very charismatic. How he just blurts things out, and I think what I'm focusing on is more so the delivery and the overall feel of the new voiceovers, because like with Persona 3 Portable, they sound tinny. They sound a bit like restricted, and it does feel aged. In Persona 3 Reload, they feel full and warm and bouncy, and it just feels like modern. It does. Like that, to put it bluntly, it just feels
I'm glad
modern.
you think so. Yeah, like someone like not Misato. Oh God, I was like dropping Evangelion. The red-haired girl. I can't remember her name for the life of me right now.
Mitsuru?
Yeah, Mitsuru. Thank you.
Queen?
Mitsuru Kirijo, I think, senpai. She sounds like the same voice actor, and I think she's different. But that's like, as somebody who grew up with these games, like it's really nice to hear that they put so much effort into like finding the right people for these roles and like letting them commit. And even like the voice actor for the main character, like Alex, I think his name's Alex Lee. He he did like a character in Street Fighter 6 and Astral Chain and stuff. Like I saw he made a tweet recently. This is a real weird tangent, but he put out a tweet recently saying like that he was sick when he was voicing the role of like the main character, like in certain parts of the role. And like I can't tell at all. I think he nails it. So there's no way he's gonna see this video, but because like that's the dream, right? Is we always hope developers see our stuff. But
hi Alex, thanks for watching.
he did a great job. But I'm really glad to hear you think that they nailed the roles as well. That's nice.
I mean, you brought up the male protagonist, and I guess this is probably one of the biggest points, at least the biggest controversy for a lot of people, is that Persona 3 Portable had two main protagonists. You can play as a male or a female, whereas in Persona 3 Reload, you are just stripped back to the male-only protagonist. And like, I don't know the ins and outs to why that is the case, or why they decided to do that, for instance, but like
from people that I talked to back in the day, I think that the story did change up quite a bit. But when I say that, I think I mean more like, the dialogue would change, like
when it comes to like this new version, the protagonist, I will say the character models are sublime in this game.
Yeah,
like, they are so detailed, and the uniform, like staring at the little creases in the jacket and the blazer and all that stuff.
Yeah,
it's gorgeous. I would say it's the best looking Persona game. We've got the advantage that it's the newest Persona game, but it does look nicer than Persona 5 Royal and stuff.
And their faces look like so animated, like in battle, when they're like that screen of them like all walking down the hallway in Tartarus or whatever, and like you see like the little smirks come up, or like Junpei like grabs his hat and tucks it down or something, like nods at you. Like it's really, really nice how well they nailed these characters.
I think their mouths are fully rigged for all the vocal bits as well. So
sweet.
it feels very fleshed out, very intentional. A part of me, though, on the flip side, just thinks that if the story didn't change all that much, it feels maybe like it could have been a bit lazy to just not have a female protagonist in there, because it means more, I think, to the audience than it does as a gameplay mechanic. And obviously, I don't know fully what it takes to be a developer. I'm not one, so I can't speak as one. But if you rig a character model with just a different skin, then it could possibly be that way. But obviously, you've got to take into consideration all of the voice lines. They've got to change pronouns and stuff like that. But
True.
There's a lot of work in there, but it just does feel like a missed opportunity.
It's a weird thing too, because I think, we have Persona as a series, it's such a tradition now. Like Persona 2, for example, in Japan, was like split in half. It was just straight up, it was 2 games. And eventually we got the second one on PSP. Persona 3 had Persona 3 and then FES. 4 had 4 and 4 Golden. 5, now we know has 5 and 5 Royal. So like, why wouldn't Persona 3 Reload continue the tradition of having that second game like a year or 2 later? So, I mean, I know there's rumors and stuff out there right now of like, of a not a remaster, but like an updated version that has, like the FemC, I think was what they used to like call her. I could see her coming over as like a beefed up version or something like that, and maybe they include like the answer was like a side story that they or like an epilogue that they added into Persona 3 FES. That wasn't a thing in Persona 3 Portable, I don't think. Maybe we'll get that main character swap down the road at some point.
Am I right in thinking that Persona 3 Reload is a remake of Persona 3 and not Persona 3 FES?
I think so. I did hear that apparently Aigis didn't have a social link in just base Shin Megami Tensei Persona 3, and in this remake Reload she does now. So that's another change like that they brought over.
When it comes to, I suppose, if I'm going to keep chugging along with certain aspects of it, I'm again, I've mentioned it before, I'm new to the Persona franchise. I think I started with 5, and I really enjoyed Persona 5 Tactica that came out very recently. It's a tactics game, top down.
Yeah.
It's completely different from how Persona works as a traditional way, where it's turn-based battles. This is a top-down strategy turn-based battles with like tiles and stuff. It's really good, but one thing that was missing from Persona 5 Tactica was the school element. There was no daily social calendar at all. It was just here's a battle, there's a visual novel, go back to the battle, and that was pretty much it. With Persona 3 Reload, it feels really nice to go back to school and manage the school life, as well as dipping into Tartarus at night. And honestly, I don't know how these kids do it, because I'd just be knackered. If I'm up late, I don't want to wake up in the morning. So but they all managed to do it, and the school feels great. I wondered how you felt about, like, say, Gekkoukan High now being again traversable. Like you can walk it, you can run around and explore the game more so how it was originally intended and not importable.
It really does feel more alive, like getting to move the camera around just in this space. I mean, I know you could kind of move around in 3D in Persona 3 FES, and Portable went with like, the point and click kind of aspects, but it feels like I've had a picture on my desk for 10 years and now I can pick up that picture and I can walk inside of it and walk around and look through the window and see the cherry blossoms. And
I don't have the same relationship as that, but like I had that similar experience. And I'd only played like an hour of Portable. Yeah. Specifically when I walked into the bedroom for the first time, your dorm bedroom. I was like, this looks exactly the same as the point and click, but I'm walking around instead of tapping my screen or pointing and clicking.
Yeah.
Like it felt very familiar, but new. It felt fresh. It felt modern, but it felt like it was true to Persona 3 Portable, at least.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's very faithful. That's cool to hear that even like with the short time you had with Persona 3 Portable, that like you've been able to have like that appreciation, I suppose, for this remake. Can I ask what you thought about the music?
So I have feelings about the music, and I always, for a start, think Persona games absolutely smash their soundtracks.
Yeah.
Like they are always so spot on. Persona 5 is where I've spent most of my time, and I keep going back to it. And I know people are like, oh, Persona 5, Persona 3, you don't have to make the comparison every time. And I don't want to, but my experience lies there. And the soundtrack in 5 is very like jazzy and and funky and punchy in that way. And what I loved about Persona 3 Reload was, I mean, you walk out the door in the first 5 minutes and you get the tone that this game is much darker.
Yeah.
I always hear that like it's like upscaled and it's a bit more fancy than like visually to look at than Persona 2 and Persona 1. But the story and the tone is very dark. Like, it doesn't take long for me to go, this is definitely a different vibe. And what I loved about it was that the music truly reflected it. Like the combat music is punchy, but it's also kind of darker. It's more like metal and crunchy.
Right, you got that rap, the like rapper in there. Which, what if I told you that rapper's name is Lotus Juice?
That's an iconic name.
Some of those tracks are just so infamous. I wanted to send you, I have 2 examples. So this is the original Mass Destruction track, which is the standard battle track. Go ahead and listen to like 15 seconds. Listen to the baby, the oh yeah.
It is jazzy. It's very funky and jazzy.
So then here is the remake, because they entirely like recreated this track. I'm thinking with a new like singer.
All of the levels are just so well balanced. It's completely more put together. Like, that's what I'm getting from it.
So I don't know how other people feel. I haven't really checked in with the community, but they like changed up the way that like baby gets pronounced, and it's so hard to like rewire my brain into like accepting that as like gospel now, because I'm so used to the oh yeah and the ba da ba ba da ba da ba ba.
I mean, this is 3's You'll Never See It Coming.
Yes, you're told. Yes, absolutely. The best example I can give is in Final Fantasy IV. I always thought the main character's name was pronounced Cecil, and then in like 2006 they remade the game for the DS and they gave the game voice acting, and they pronounced the guy's name Cecil, and I was like, what? So every time I would hear it, I was like, that's not my Cecil, that's not him. And
That's
so
not my truth.
I do agree with you 100% that like these songs are so much more like well produced or better produced.
I mean, it's on the same level as the voice acting. Everything is just, it doesn't feel half-assed.
Yeah.
At any point. I think that's why this, I would say it justifies it being a full remake from the ground up. Every single area that, at least from my quite minimal experience, has been addressed and built upon and made better. And the music, to me, like from the example that you sent, it feels fuller, it feels thicker. And I think they're the small things that people don't notice that go into feeling like a really new and fresh experience. So
that battle theme, that secondary battle theme that you get when you like strike an enemy, like when you surprise them or like catch them off guard or whatever, that track though, like I love that so much, and I'm so glad that they decided to give us like a different track, because I can't remember if in the original Persona 3 if you had that like secondary, it might have just been that Mass Destruction one throughout. I'm very excited to like play more of the game and see like, because obviously like maybe not every song is gonna make my like nostalgic brain happy, but I'm glad that they put so much effort into making new tracks instead of just like doing it by the book as well, because I think like as much as I want that baby, because it's like baby is that's what I hear. And I know it's so dumb that like I don't know why I like care so much about that. But
I mean, that there you have it, folks. This is why it's not a 10. It's a 9.
Yep. If they were a little more like loose and funny with their baby than the big, I like the messy version. I like and it feels a bit too rigid almost, but it's okay. It's fine. It's fine, Greg. I'm gonna be fine. It's just music.
I will say, from my point of view, it sounds fantastic.
Good.
So
okay.
I will say before we move off music, one, I really liked how many references you had in the review.
Oh yeah,
so if you haven't watched it and you haven't caught them, then you should check it out. It's one of the best parts of the video, in my opinion.
That was really fun.
But one of the things that I really liked about the music is also where it's not used. Like when I started the game, there was no music. You had your flashy intro, which, to be honest, I remember watching through the opening animation and being like, "Wow, this is so upbeat." And then a pistol appears, and then I'm like, "This is really dark."
Dude, yeah, the opening is wild, isn't it?
It's so good. But straight after that, when you get off the train and the dark hour begins, it's just silence. It's somber, and you can hear the squelches of your boots going through the blood that's in the streets, and it's like, what am I about to play? One of those things that from an outsider looking in, I think they've mastered the dark hour, at least in this version of Persona 3 Reload.
Yeah.
And I think it works really well. I will say I played most of the game on the Series S, which I'm happy to report that it works really well. And
Good.
As it should, to be honest, but it's good even more so than the fact that I also spent some time with the Asus ROG Ally, which is the little handheld, and it has PC Game Pass on it. And I was running at a 1080 120 hertz resolution, and it was just gorgeous. I think coming back to your point about the UI, it looks so good, like the splash down that happens.
Yeah.
Where your character's just the protagonist is splashing down and you get all the menu items and stuff, but it just feels really crisp, and especially when you have 120 hertz, like it just moves so nicely.
Persona 5, right, had like such an insane menu style. Like there was so much attention to detail, and it was so unique. And it's cool that like Persona 3 Reload has kind of like it's not copied homework or anything like that. It's really just kind of looked at Persona 5 and went like, yeah, we can make another cool menu system here.
Absolutely.
Where right. It's not like it's not as punchy. It's more, it flows instead of being this kind of punchy, snappy UI. And but it works.
I will say I think the blue, the white, and the splashy like liquidy texture of it is iconic in its own way, and it's completely the opposite of 5.
Yeah,
which really stands out and is honestly one of my favorite parts of the game. I love pausing it.
Yeah,
it sounds counterproductive.
No, dude,
for loving
I totally
the game,
see
but
what
I
you
love
mean.
pausing
Yeah.
it and then watching it come down and seeing the protagonist just like floating around in certain aspects of the menu. I'm aware we've kind of breezed over combat, but one of the things that I think is good from first time player of Persona 3 really is that the combat on paper is very familiar stuff. It also is really great for the fact that I went from playing the newer games like 5 and stuff, and then when you come back to what is being considered like a remaster or a remake, the combat doesn't feel like it's pulling itself back. It's got all the things that you'd expect. It's got the one mores. It's got the all-out attacks. You've got your personas. You can swap between them like protagonists can. So you've got all of your elemental strengths and stuff. And I think it's great. I didn't have any feelings at all about the combat, which to me is a good thing because I almost expected to be like, this feels older and they've refreshed it. But it feels just as good as 5, and it feels fluid and it feels modern.
I mean, that probably is like a thing that as we're not developers, but the people who worked on this game that's probably like an important question that they had to ask themselves was like, yeah, how faithful do we keep the combat? Because I think what they did back then was, well, to be honest, it was horrible not being able to control like your party. You could only control your main character in Persona 3 and FES.
Yeah,
I agree. It's really cool that they swapped out that once more with a switch, or I don't even remember what they call the move, but yeah, all out attacks are here, and it's so flashy and it's quick. Even like the shuffle system is really fun. It took me a while to like remember like, oh wait, this is how you get personas in this game again. I mean, I know you fuse them and everything too, but yeah, I totally see what you mean. It doesn't feel like you are like missing out, or you're playing like a lesser game now compared to Persona 5.
No, it doesn't feel like it's limited at all by like trying to upscale some older tech. It feels new. It feels today, and it feels 2024, which is my favorite part. Generally, that's kind of what we wanted to talk about. I am interested to know what you think now that it's out on Xbox and Game Pass, and I would love to see them in the comments. And of course, you can check out the review if you want more specific details about how the game works and stuff. This was kind of just our expression of what we loved and why it's so great, and and maybe not why it's so great in certain areas, but I have had a great time with the game. I know you have as well, Xeon.
Yeah.
Obviously, thank you so much for joining me on Pure Xbox. I'm sure we're going to have you over here plenty more in the future. At least if I can have my way.
Yeah, we'll have to collaborate just as often as we can.
Yes, I thoroughly enjoyed myself over there on Nintendo Life, and any excuse to have me over there as well is a great one. It's also worth mentioning that we have Push Square as well, and any excuse to get over there is something that we're going to take at some point as well, because Aaron does a fantastic job. So
Yeah,
if you're
for
a
real.
PlayStation fan, then we've got you covered there as well, and I'll put a link in the description or something like that. But
Go push the square.
yeah, push the square, live the Nintendo life, and just live your be pure like Xbox.
Please be pure.
Thank you very much for watching, and of course, be sure to check out Nintendo Life. And thank you very much, Xeon. And
Thank you for having me.
that's
Thank you,
all.
thank you, thank you for letting me foam at the mouth about Persona 3 Reload.
Time waits for no one, so get playing.
Bye.
Bye.